The red dust of Kepler 442b swirled around Una Park's boots as she knelt beside the excavation pit. Her hands trembled slightly as she brushed away another layer of ancient soil. Beneath her fingers, metal gleamed in the afternoon light. Not just any metal. This was something old. Very old. "Dr. Park, you need to see this," Jawan Lee called from the other side of the dig site. The young assistant's voice carried an edge of excitement mixed with fear. Una stood and walked carefully across the excavation grid. The colonial settlement of New Busan lay 3 kilometers to the east, a cluster of white domes against the orange sky. She had been digging here for 6 months, searching for artifacts from the Thalvir Empire. The Empire had ruled this sector 10,000 years ago, before the Great Silence Wars destroyed them and dozens of other civilizations. Jiwon pointed down into a deeper trench. "The scanners found something big. Really big. It's 30 meters down and still going." Lieutenant Daehyun Kim, their military escort, leaned over the edge of the pit. His face was serious as always. "How big are we talking?" "At least 50 meters tall," Jiwon said, checking her tablet. "Maybe bigger. And it's still powered. The energy readings are off the charts." Una felt her heart race.
Powered technology from before the Silence Wars was extremely rare.
Most ancient machines had died when their civilizations fell. "Get the ground-penetrating radar online. I want a full scan." Over the next 3 hours, the team worked to map the buried object. What they found made no sense. The structure was massive, roughly humanoid in shape, with heavy armor plating and what looked like weapon systems built into its arms. But the design matched nothing in any galactic database. "It's not Thalvir," Una muttered, studying the scans on her portable screen. "The architectural style is completely different." "Then what is it?" Daehyun asked. "I don't know. But look at this." Una zoomed in on a section of the hull. Strange symbols covered the surface, carved or etched into the metal. She recognized several ancient languages. Thalvir, Sivaran, Drex, and something else. Something that made her breath catch in her throat. "Is that Hangul?" Jiwon whispered, leaning closer. Una nodded slowly. Hangul, Korean writing. But that was impossible. Humanity had only reached the stars 200 years ago. They were newcomers to the galactic community, barely tolerated by the elder races who had been traveling space for millennia. There was no way human writing should be on a machine that was 10,000 years old. "We need to report this," Daehyun said firmly. "Right now." "No," Una said. "Not yet. If we tell the colonial government, they'll shut down the dig. If we tell the elder races, they'll demand we destroy it. Dr. Park, regulations are clear. Any powered ancient technology must be reported immediately. Give me 48 hours, please. Just let me figure out what this is." Daehyun looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. 48 hours. Then I have to report it, orders or no orders." That night, Una couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about those symbols. Korean letters on a machine older than human spaceflight. Older than human civilization as the galaxy knew it. She pulled up every file she had on Earth's history, searching for something, anything that might explain it. The official history was simple. Humanity developed FTL travel in 2647. They joined the galactic community in 2651. Before that, humans had been confined to their solar system, primitive and isolated. But there were gaps in Earth's historical records. Entire centuries where documentation was sparse or missing. Historians called them the lost centuries, blamed on wars and data corruption. What if the gaps meant something else? The next day, Una brought in specialized equipment. Deep excavation lasers capable of cutting through solid rock. "We're going down to the object," she announced. "We're going to see it up close." "That's against protocol," Daehyun warned. "If that thing is still active, then we need to know what it is before someone else finds it." It took 14 hours of careful digging, but finally they broke through to a massive chamber. The excavation lasers had created a tunnel that opened into an underground space the size of a warehouse. And there in the center stood the machine. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. 50 meters of dark metal and elegant engineering. Humanoid, but clearly not meant to look like any specific species. Its armor was scarred and dented, showing signs of ancient battles. Weapon ports dotted its arms and shoulders. A single glowing sensor array, currently dark, sat where a head might be on a human. Una approached slowly, her flashlight beam dancing across the machine's surface. Up close, she could see the writing more clearly. Dozens of languages all mixed together, And there on the chest plate in clear Hangul characters, Guardian No 7. Guardian, she whispered. You were protecting something. Her hand reached out almost of its own accord and touched the metal. It was warm. After 10,000 years buried in the ground, it was still warm. The machine sensor array flickered. Just for a moment. A brief pulse of blue light. Daehyun's hand went to his sidearm. Dr. Park, step away from it. But Yuna couldn't move. She stared at the symbols, at the Korean writing mixed with alien scripts. Something about it felt familiar. Like a memory she couldn't quite grasp. More symbols caught her attention. Below the Guardian designation, there was a phrase in Old Korean. She could barely read it. Her grandmother had taught her some of the ancient form of the language when she was young. The phrase said something about voice activation and command authorization. We need to leave, Daehyun said firmly. Now this thing just responded to touch. It might wake up completely. Yuna nodded and stepped back. But her mind was racing. Voice activation, command authorization, as if this machine was waiting for orders. From someone who could speak Korean. Back at the surface, Captain Mirai Choi was waiting with a squad of soldiers. Lieutenant Kim contacted me, she said coldly. He told me about your discovery. The Colonial Council has been informed. Representatives from 3 elder races are already on their way. Captain, please, Yuna began. This isn't a request, Dr. Park. The Sivaran ambassador has already sent a message. He demands the machine be destroyed immediately. The elder races don't want unknown military technology activated on a human colony world. They're scared, Yuna realized. They know what this is, don't they? Or at least they suspect. Mirai didn't answer. She didn't need to. The fear in her eyes said everything. That night, while the Colonial Council debated and the elder race ambassadors issued threats, Yuna made a decision. She slipped past the guards, back down into the excavation tunnel. She stood before the Guardian again. This massive ancient machine that somehow carried her language on its hull. She remembered the phrase, the old Korean words for command activation. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory, teaching her the formal speech patterns of ancient military protocol. Yuna took a deep breath. This was insane. This would probably get her arrested or worse. But she had to know. She had to understand why human writing was on a machine that predated humanity's return to space. She spoke the words clearly, in Old Korean, using the formal military grammar her grandmother had taught her. Guardian Unit, acknowledge command structure. Authorization, Park Yuna, civilian specialist. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the entire machine lit up like a star. The ground shook. Alarms blared across the dig site as the Guardian's power core roared to life after 10 millennia of silence. Yuna stumbled backward, shielding her eyes from the brilliant blue light pouring from the machine's sensor array. The Guardian's head moved. Smoothly, precisely, it looked down at her. When it spoke, the voice was clear and strong, echoing through the underground chamber in perfect Old Korean. Command structure acknowledged. Authorization accepted. Guardian 07 operational status at 73%. Awaiting orders, General Park. I'm not a general, Yuna whispered, but her voice was lost in the noise. The machine began to rise. Ancient hydraulics screamed as it pushed upward through tons of rock and soil. Yuna ran for the exit tunnel, her legs pumping as debris rained down around her. Behind her, the Guardian broke through to the surface, standing tall against the orange sky of Kepler 4 Mori 2b. Every alarm in New Busan went off at once. Colonial defense forces scrambled, bringing up weapon systems and shields. Above, in orbit, 3 human warships that had been on patrol duty turned toward the settlement. Their sensors locked on the massive war machine now standing in the middle of the archaeological dig. Yuna emerged from the tunnel, gasping for breath. Soldiers surrounded her immediately, weapons raised. Captain Mirai Choi pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with anger and fear. What did you do? Mirai demanded. Before Yuna could answer, the Guardian moved again. With surprising grace for something so large, it turned toward Yuna and performed a perfect military salute. Its right fist went to its chest exactly as a soldier might salute a superior officer. Then it spoke again, loud enough for everyone to hear. Orders received, General. Guardian 07 awaiting command authorization. All weapon systems locked until command release. Defense mode only. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Lieutenant Daehyun pushed forward, his face pale. Dr. Park, what is that thing saying? Why is it calling you General? Yuna shook her head, unable to form words. The Guardian remained in its salute position, waiting patiently. Around them, more soldiers arrived, along with colonial officials and frightened civilians from the settlement. In orbit, the situation grew worse. Ships from 3 elder races had been nearby when the Guardian activated. Severan cruisers, Drex destroyers, and a Kelvin observation vessel all converged on Kepler 442b. Their weapons charging. Ambassador Cale Thorin, the Severan representative, broadcast on all frequencies. His voice was cold and sharp. Human colonial forces, you will stand down immediately. That machine is a Terminus-class war platform. Its activation is an act of aggression against all galactic species. You have 1 standard hour to deactivate it, or we will destroy your settlement from orbit. Captain Mirai looked at Yuna with desperation. Can you turn it off? I don't know how, Yuna admitted. I just spoke the activation phrase. I didn't think it would actually work. A new voice cut through the chaos. Nobody is destroying anything. Everyone turned. A tall woman in an Earth Fleet Admiral's uniform strode across the dig site, flanked by a dozen Marines. Admiral Soman Han had arrived from Earth on the fastest ship available. Her presence meant this situation had reached the highest levels of human government. With her came another person. An elderly man with kind eyes and gray hair. Dr. Hyon Sung, Earth's foremost historian of the lost centuries. Dr. Park, Hyon said gently, I need you to ask the Guardian a question. Ask it to identify its origin and purpose. Yuna swallowed hard and looked up at the massive machine. In Old Korean, she asked the question. The Guardian's response made everyone present go silent. Guardian 07, Terminus-class war platform. Manufactured Earth Defense Command, year 7842 pre-regression. Primary mission, enforcement of Protocol 0. Secondary mission, protection of human colonial populations. Tertiary mission, maintenance of galactic peace through overwhelming deterrent force. Current mission status, awaiting updated orders from Command Authority. Pre-regression, Hyon breathed. So it's true. It's all true. What's true? Admiral Soman demanded. What is pre-regression? Hyon turned to face the crowd. For the past 50 years, a small group of historians have been investigating anomalies in Earth's timeline. We found evidence suggesting humanity didn't achieve FTL travel 200 years ago. We rediscovered it. We had been to the stars before. Long before. That's insane, Mirai said. There's no evidence. There was no evidence because it was all destroyed, Hyon interrupted. Or we thought it was. Until now. He gestured at the Guardian. This machine is proof. Humanity was a space-faring civilization during the Great Silence Wars. And based on what this Guardian just said, we weren't just participants. We were major players. The Guardian's sensor array turned toward Hyon. Correct. Humanity held defensive positions across 47 sectors during the final war. Korean-led coalition forces commanded approximately 30% of human military assets. Total human fleet strength at war's end, insufficient data. Estimated casualties, 73 billion across all colonies. The number hit like a physical blow. 73 billion dead. An entire civilization, larger than current humanity, wiped out in a war nobody remembered. What is Protocol 0? Admiral Soman asked quietly. The Guardian paused as if accessing deep memory files. Protocol 0. Final solution authorization. In the event of total war escalation, all Terminus-class platforms authorized to eliminate military and industrial capacity of aggressor species. Objective: force immediate cessation of hostilities through demonstration of overwhelming power. Protocol 0 was activated once. Thalvir Empire refused peace terms. Guardian units responded. Thalvir military capacity neutralized in 48 standard hours. All other species surrendered immediately. Horror spread across every face. This machine, and others like it, had destroyed an entire galactic empire in 2 days. The Thalvir had ruled hundreds of worlds. They had weapons that could crack planets. And humanity's war machines had crushed them completely. How many Guardians exist? Yuna asked, her voice shaking. 12 units manufactured, 5 destroyed in combat, 7 remain. Guardian 01, 02, 03, 05, 07, 09, and 11 are operational. Units are awakening now, responding to Command Authority genetic signature. Genetic signature? Admiral Soman stepped forward. Explain. Command Authority locked to genetic descendants of original command staff. Current recognition. Park Una matches genetic profile of General Park Una, Terminus Force Commander. Authorization level, full command capability. Una felt her legs go weak. Daehyun caught her before she fell. My ancestor, she whispered. I'm named after my ancestor. My grandmother said she was a great woman, a leader during the lost centuries. I thought it was just family legend. It wasn't legend, Hyun said softly. Your ancestor commanded these machines. She was the one who activated Protocol Zero, and when the war ended, she made sure humanity would never use them again. She programmed them to sleep until humanity naturally rediscovered space travel. The genetic lock ensured only her descendants could wake them, hoping that future generations would be wiser. In orbit, Ambassador Kale Thorin's patience ran out. Human forces, your time is up. We are opening fire. 3 Civeron cruisers launched missiles streaking down toward the dig site. The Guardian moved faster than anything that large should be able to move. Its arm came up, and invisible fields erupted around the settlement. The missiles hit the barrier and simply stopped, frozen in midair. Then the Guardian spoke again, but this time not to Una. It broadcast on all frequencies. In every major galactic language, warning to all vessels, defensive protocols engaged. This settlement is under Guardian protection. Any further hostile action will be met with counterforce. Terminus-class war platform Guardian 07 is operational and authorized. Stand down immediately. The frozen missiles fell harmlessly to the ground, their propulsion systems disabled by the Guardian's electronic warfare suite. In space, something remarkable happened. Every ship in the sector, human and alien alike, suddenly lost weapon control. Not power, not engines, just weapons. The Guardian had reached into their systems and locked them down, all while standing on a planet's surface. Ambassador Kale Thorin's face appeared on every screen in the settlement. For the first time since Una had seen him, he looked genuinely frightened. This is impossible. Terminus platforms were a myth. A story to scare young species. Myths are often based on truth, Admiral Soman replied coldly. And now we have 7 of these myths waking up. So perhaps we should all sit down and talk before anyone else does something stupid. Una looked up at the Guardian, this terrible and magnificent machine her ancestor had commanded. It was still waiting, patient and loyal after 10,000 years, for orders from a general who had died millennia ago. Guardian, she said in Old Korean, maintain defensive posture only, no offensive action without my direct authorization. Orders received and logged, General. Guardian 07 standing by. Around her, the full weight of what had just happened began to sink in. Humanity wasn't a young species fumbling its way into space. They were older than anyone knew. And they had built weapons that could still terrify the galaxy after 10,000 years of silence. Una had awakened something that might save humanity from the elder race's aggression. Or she had just started a second Great Silence War. The emergency council meeting took place in New Busan's largest conference hall. Representatives from 5 major galactic powers sat across from Earth's delegation, their expressions ranging from fear to barely controlled anger. The Guardian stood outside, visible through the windows, a silent reminder of what humanity had been capable of. Una sat between Admiral Soman Han and Dr. Hyun Sung, feeling completely out of her depth. She was an archaeologist, not a diplomat. Yet here she sat, because the Guardian would only fully respond to her commands. Ambassador Kale Thorin spoke first, his voice tight. The Civeron Collective demands immediate deactivation of all Terminus platforms. These weapons are illegal under the Treaty of Kelvin III, which prohibits planetary destruction devices. The Treaty of Kelvin III was signed 4,000 years ago. Admiral Soman replied calmly. Earth wasn't party to it. We were still recovering from the war that you all conveniently forgot about. We forgot nothing, a Drex representative said. Her name was Elder Kira Voss, and she was one of the few beings old enough to actually remember the Silence Wars. Her scaled face showed deep concern. We chose to forget. There is a difference. The wars were so terrible that most species agreed to erase the records, to give future generations a chance to start fresh. By lying to them, Una found herself speaking up. By pretending humanity never existed until recently? Kira met her eyes. Yes, because the alternative was worse. The humans of the old era were terrifying, not because they were cruel, but because they were effective. When humanity entered a conflict, That conflict ended, one way or another. Before anyone could respond, alarms sounded again. New ships were arriving in the system. 2 more Guardians had jumped in, massive forms appearing in orbit like dark angels. The displays showed their designations: Guardian 03 and Guardian 09. Admiral Soman's communicator chirped. She listened for a moment, then looked at Yuna. "They're asking for you. They want command confirmation." Yuna's hand shook as she picked up the communicator. In Old Korean, she identified herself and ordered the new arrivals to hold position. The Guardians acknowledged and moved to flanking positions around the planet, their weapons dormant but ready. 3 of them now, Kale Thorin said, his voice hollow. "How are we supposed to maintain galactic security when one species has weapons that can eliminate entire fleets?" "The same way you maintained it for the past 10,000 years, Hyun replied. "By not starting wars, you can't win." The meeting dissolved into arguments. Some species wanted to destroy the Guardians before more could wake up. Others suggested negotiation. A few, like the Drex, advocated for accepting humanity's new position and adapting galactic politics accordingly. It was during the 3rd hour of debate that the real bombshell arrived. A young Earth Fleet officer rushed in and handed Admiral Soman a data pad. The Admiral's face went pale as she read. "We found something," Soman said quietly. "Our deep space monitoring network detected automated signals. They're old, very old, and they're broadcasting from locations all across human space." She projected the data onto the main screen. Dozens of points of light appeared, scattered throughout what had once been human territory before the regression. "What are those?" Yuna asked. "Defense platforms," Soman replied. "Thousands of them. They never shut down. They've been dormant, running on minimal power, waiting, and now they're waking up, responding to the Guardian activation." Kale Thorin stood abruptly, his chair scraping across the floor. "This is unacceptable. You have an entire ghost fleet hidden throughout the galaxy?" "We didn't hide anything," Admiral Soman shot back. "We didn't even know they existed until today. Our ancestors built them and then forgot about them, just like we forgot about the Guardians." Elder Kira Voss raised a hand for silence. "Enough. Fighting among ourselves helps no one." She turned to Yuna. "Dr. Park, I must ask you a difficult question. Can you control these machines? Truly control them?" Yuna wanted to say yes. She wanted to sound confident. But she couldn't lie. "I don't know. The Guardian responds to my voice and genetic signature. But I'm not a general. I'm not my ancestor. I don't know military strategy or how to command ancient war machines." "Then learn," Kira said simply. "Because whether we like it or not, you are now one of the most powerful individuals in the galaxy. 7 Guardians and thousands of defense platforms answer to you. How you use that power will determine if we face another silence war or find a path to peace." That night, unable to sleep, Yuna returned to the Guardian. It stood in the darkness, a massive shadow against the stars. She approached slowly, placing her hand on its armored leg. "Guardian 07, can you show me my ancestors' records? I need to understand who she was." "Affirmative, General." Accessing historical files. The Guardian's sensor array projected a hologram. A woman appeared, wearing an unfamiliar military uniform. She looked remarkably like Yuna. Same face shape, same eyes, but harder somehow. More tired. This was General Park Yuna, as she had appeared 10,000 years ago. The hologram began to speak, a recording from the final days of the war. "If you're seeing this, it means the Guardians have awakened again. It means humanity has returned to space. I hope you're ready for what comes next, because I wasn't." Yuna listened, transfixed as her ancestor explained the war, the terrible choices she had made, and the reason for Protocol Zero. The original General Park had been a diplomat, assigned to negotiate peace between the warring species. When the Thalvir killed her entire delegation, she survived only by chance. Grief and rage transformed her from a peacemaker into a warrior. "I built the Guardians to end the war," the hologram said, "and they did. But the cost was my soul. I became the thing I hated, someone who solved problems with overwhelming force. When it was over, when the galaxy finally went quiet, I realized what I had done. I had created weapons so terrible that no one would ever dare fight again. But weapons like that don't bring peace. They just bring fear." The recording showed the General's final decision. She had ordered all Guardians to be buried on distant worlds, their locations erased from all databases. The genetic lock was her insurance that only her own bloodline could reactivate them. hoping that future generations would have the wisdom she lacked. "If you're holding this command authority," the hologram said, looking directly at Yuna across 10 millennia, "then you've inherited my burden. I'm sorry. I tried to make sure you would never have to. But the galaxy is what it is. Learn from my mistakes. Don't let fear guide you. Don't let anger make your choices. And remember, the Guardians are just tools. The real power is in knowing when to use them and when to let them sleep." The hologram faded. Yuna stood in the darkness, tears streaming down her face. She understood now. Her ancestor hadn't been a monster. She had been a person pushed past her breaking point, trying to save what she could and failing to save herself. Movement caught her eye. A young man approached from the settlement, flanked by military escorts. He looked nervous but determined. "Dr. Park?" he said. "My name is Taeyang Bayek. Admiral Han sent me. Apparently my genetic profile also matches the command staff. Guardian 02 and Guardian 05 have been asking for me." Yuna studied him. Taeyang couldn't be older than 25. "You're a descendant too?" "My family name is Bayek." Admiral Han's historians found records suggesting General Bayek Taeyang was second in command of the Terminus Force. "We thought it was just a coincidence, me having the same name." Turns out it wasn't. Before Yuna could respond, urgent alerts sounded across the settlement. New contacts had appeared in system. Lots of them. The displays showed the approaching fleet in horrifying detail. 300 ships, mostly Severon with support from other elder races who feared humanity's re-emergence. Admiral Somin's voice came through on all channels. "All hands, battle stations. Unknown fleet is moving into attack formation. They're broadcasting demands for immediate surrender of all Guardian platforms." Kale Thorin's face appeared on screens throughout the settlement. His expression was hard, resolved. "Humans, this is your final warning. The Severan Collective and allied forces cannot allow weapons of galactic extinction to remain in the hands of a single species. Surrender the Guardians or we will destroy them and your colonies. You have 1 hour." Yuna looked up at Guardian 07. The machine sensors were already tracking the incoming fleet, calculating firing solutions, preparing for battle. All it needed was the word. One command and 3 Guardians would fight 300 ships. The original General Park's words echoed in her mind. "Don't let fear guide you. Don't let anger make your choices, but what choice did she have? If she did nothing, the fleet would attack. If she ordered the Guardians to fight, people would die. Millions of people." Taeyang stepped beside her, looking equally lost. "What do we do?" "I don't know," Yuna admitted. "I really don't know." The Guardian's sensor array pulsed gently, waiting patiently for orders. Around them, Earth fleet ships prepared for a battle they couldn't win. In the darkness of space, the Elder Race fleet approached, ready to eliminate what they saw as a threat to galactic peace, and Yuna, a simple archaeologist who had just wanted to understand the past, held the power to start or stop a war that would make the Silence Wars look small by comparison. The countdown began. 59 minutes until the fleet opened fire. The first missile didn't come from the Elder Race fleet. It came from a Severan extremist group that had hidden a small ship inside an asteroid, waiting for the perfect moment. The weapon launched toward Earth itself, jumping through FTL in a suicide run meant to destroy humanity's homeworld before the Guardians could respond. They underestimated the ancient machines. Guardian 03, in orbit around Earth, moved before the missile even fully emerged from FTL. Its defensive systems calculated the trajectory, identified the threat, and responded in less than a second. But it didn't destroy the missile. Instead, it caught it, held it suspended in an energy field, and gently pushed it into the sun. Target neutralized. Guardian 03 broadcast on all channels. No casualties. Defensive action only, as ordered by General Park. The Elder Race fleet froze. They had just watched a Terminus-class platform respond to a hypersonic threat faster than their best computers could even register it, and it had done so without firing a single shot. On Kepler 442b, Yuna felt her heart hammering. That could have been Earth, billions of people, gone in an instant. The Guardians had saved them, but the attack meant extremists were willing to commit genocide to stop humanity's re-emergence. Admiral Somin's face was grim on the communication screen. "Dr. Park, 3 more Guardians just jumped into Earth's system. Guardian 01, 05, and 11. They're taking defensive positions around the planet. I think they know what we're facing. They're protecting their home," Hyon said quietly beside Yuna. Even after 10,000 years, they still remember. The main Elder race fleet, 300 ships strong, continued their approach to Kepler 442b, but now they moved more cautiously. They had seen what the Guardians could do. Ambassador Cale Thorin opened a channel, his face showing the strain of command. "General Park," he said, using her inherited title for the first time. "What you just saw was not authorized by the Siveron Collective. We are moving to apprehend the extremists responsible. However, our position remains unchanged. The Guardians are too dangerous to exist." Una stood, facing the communication screen. "You just tried to murder billions of people and you're lecturing us about being dangerous?" "That was not us. That was a radical group. A radical group from your species with your weapons in your territory," Una interrupted. "Don't pretend this isn't connected. You're scared of us, so you're willing to commit genocide to feel safe again." The accusation hung in the air. Other Elder race representatives shifted uncomfortably. They knew she was right. Elder Kira Voss spoke up from her ship. "General Park speaks truth. We have become the aggressors here, driven by fear of a past we tried to forget. This is not justice. This is not security. This is cowardice. Cowardice." Cale Thorin sounded offended. "We are trying to prevent another silence war. By starting one?" Kira's voice was sharp. "Think carefully, Ambassador. If you attack that colony, those Guardians will fight back. And if they fight, we all lose. The humans didn't wake these machines to threaten us. We threatened them first." While the debate raged, Hyon pulled Una aside. "I need to show you something. The Guardians' archives contain more than military records. There are personal logs, cultural files, everything from before the regression, including something important about how your ancestor ended the war." He pulled up a holographic display showing ancient documents. General Park didn't just use force. She tried everything else first: diplomacy, negotiation, treaties. But the Thalvir Empire was obsessed with conquest. They believed only the strong deserved to survive. So she gave them a choice: peace or annihilation. When they chose annihilation, she delivered it. But afterward, she created something else, something the galaxy forgot. "What?" Una asked. "The empathy network. A quantum communication system that allowed different species to truly understand each other, not just translate words, but share perspectives and emotions. She believed the war happened because species couldn't really communicate. They talked past each other, misunderstood intentions, let fear and pride lead to violence." Una stared at the documents. If this worked, why didn't it prevent the war? It did prevent wars. Dozens of them, according to these records. But the Thalvir refused to join the network. They saw it as weakness, as compromise, and eventually their refusal led to the final conflict. A new voice interrupted them. Dr. Sung is correct. Guardian 07 had accessed the communication system. Its voice came through speakers across the settlement. The empathy network was General Park's greatest achievement. More effective than any weapon. The technology still exists in Guardian memory banks. If General Park wishes, we can rebuild the network. Una's mind raced. A way to make species truly understand each other. That was worth more than any weapon. But would it work? Could it stop a fleet that was literally minutes away from attacking? "How long would it take to build?" she asked. "For full galactic deployment, 6 months. For limited demonstration, 47 minutes. 47 minutes. They had less time than that before the fleet attacked. But maybe, just maybe, it was enough. "Do it," Una ordered. "Build a demonstration network. Target the command staff of that approaching fleet." "Affirmative, General." Empathy network. Limited deployment, initializing. The Guardians began working together. Their vast computational power focused on a single task. They pulled technology from their ancient databases and started constructing quantum relay nodes using matter fabrication systems that humanity's current science couldn't even understand. Ambassador Cale Thorin noticed the activity. "What are you doing?" "What are those machines building?" "Something that should have been built 10,000 years ago," Una replied. "Guardian, once the network is ready, connect every command officer in that fleet. Don't ask permission, just do it. General, that would be a violation of their neural sovereignty. So is trying to commit genocide. Connect them." "That's an order." The Guardian hesitated for exactly 1 second, then complied. "Order acknowledged." Network deployment in 30 minutes. The wait was agonizing. The Elder race fleet continued its approach, weapons charging, preparing to fire on the colony. Earth fleet ships positioned themselves as shields, knowing they would die in the first salvo, but determined to buy time for evacuation. Then, 29 minutes after Yuna's order, the empathy network activated. For the first time in 10,000 years, different species truly felt what each other felt. Ambassador Cale Thorin, sitting in his command chair, suddenly experienced Yuna's perspective. He felt her fear, her desperation to protect people she cared about. He felt her uncertainty, her burden of inherited responsibility, her grief for an ancestor she never knew who had made terrible choices to save others. More importantly, he felt her genuine desire for peace. There was no hidden agenda, no plan for conquest. Just a frightened woman trying to prevent another war. Cale Thorin gasped, physically recoiling from the intensity of the connection. Around him, his command staff experienced the same thing. They felt human emotions, human perspectives, human hopes and fears. And the humans connected to the network as well felt the Severan's terror. The deep existential fear that humanity would repeat the past and dominate the galaxy again. In that moment of perfect understanding, the momentum toward war simply evaporated. Cale Thorin's hand moved to his weapons console, but instead of firing, he deactivated the targeting systems. "Fleet command to all ships," he said quietly. "Stand down. Cease all hostile actions, Ambassador," his tactical officer questioned. "They're not the enemy," Cale whispered. "They never were. We were just afraid." The fleet stopped. 300 ships armed and ready held their fire. The tension that had been building for hours suddenly broke, replaced by something else. Understanding. Not agreement, not friendship yet, but genuine comprehension of the other side's position. Elder Kira Voss's face appeared on screens throughout the settlement. She was crying. I remember this feeling. From before the regression, when humanity tried to teach us to truly see each other, we rejected it. We chose ignorance because understanding required vulnerability, and that choice led to war. Yuna felt it too. Through the network, she experienced the elder race's perspective. Their fear was real. Humanity's guardians had destroyed civilizations. Even with good intentions, even with just cause, that kind of power was terrifying. The elder races had spent 10,000 years building a society without such weapons. The return of the guardians felt like a regression to barbarism, but she also felt something else: hope, possibility, a chance to do what her ancestor couldn't, to choose understanding over force. "Ambassador Cale Thorin," Yuna said formally, "the empathy network can be expanded to include all species in the galaxy. The Guardians can build the infrastructure in 6 months. If we all agree to join it to truly communicate with each other, then maybe we won't need weapons like these anymore." Cale was silent for a long moment. "Then and the Guardians themselves? What happens to them?" Yuna looked up at Guardian 07 towering against the sky. She felt the machine's presence in the network now, its vast intelligence focused on protecting humanity, but also genuinely curious about peace. "They become what they should have been all along," Yuna said. "Not weapons, Guardians. They'll protect the network, ensure no species can refuse to join, and prevent wars before they start, but they won't conquer." The Galactic Council chamber on Kelvin Prime had never been so crowded. Representatives from 73 species packed the ancient hall, all present to vote on humanity's proposal. The debate had raged for 3 weeks. Every species had concerns. Some feared the empathy network would erase their cultural identity. Others worried about privacy. A few, like the Severans, simply feared what they might feel when connected to species they had hated for millennia. Yuna sat in the human delegation section, exhausted but determined. Beside her, Taeyang reviewed data from Guardian 02's preliminary network tests. Admiral Sominhan stood behind them, present as Earth's official representative but smart enough to let the ones who could actually command the Guardians do the talking. Ambassador Cale Thorin called the session to order. In the 3 weeks since the standoff at Kepler 442b, he had changed. The brief exposure to the empathy network had shaken something loose in him, made him question assumptions he had held for decades. "The proposal before us is simple," Kyle began. "Humanity offers to build and maintain an empathy network, connecting all galactic species. In exchange, the Terminus-class platforms called Guardians will remain active as enforcers of the network and protectors of galactic peace. The question we must answer is whether we trust humanity with this responsibility." A Kelvin representative stood. Trust is earned, not given. Humanity hid their true nature for 200 years. How do we know this network isn't a trap? Una rose to respond, but Elder Kira Voss beat her to it. The old Drek stood slowly, her movement stiff with age but her voice strong. I wish to make a statement. For the record. For history. The chamber fell silent. Kira was one of the few beings alive who had actually lived through the Silence Wars. Her testimony carried weight that no amount of data could match. I was young when the wars began, Kira said, young and foolish and full of pride in my species' achievements. The Dreks had just perfected quantum fold drives. We thought we were masters of the universe. Then the Thalvir Empire attacked our outer colonies and we learned how wrong we were. She paused, her old eyes distant with memory. The war consumed us. For 70 years we fought and died and destroyed. World after world burned. Then humanity arrived, not as conquerors but as mediators. They tried to negotiate peace. They tried to help us see reason. We rejected them. The Thalvir killed their diplomatic teams, so the humans built their guardians and gave us all one last chance to stop the madness. Kira's voice grew stronger. I was on Drek's Prime when General Park Una issued her ultimatum. I was part of the crowd calling for the humans to be destroyed for their arrogance. How dare they threaten us? How dare they demand we surrender? Then the Thalvir refused, and in 48 hours their empire ceased to exist. Not their people. Not their worlds. Just their ability to make war. Every ship. Every weapon. Every military facility. Gone. The chamber remained perfectly quiet. This was history that most species had chosen to forget, now spoken aloud by someone who had witnessed it. And do you know what General Park did after? Kira continued. She offered the same deal to everyone else. Join the peace. Accept the empathy network. Or face the same fate as the Thalvir. Every species agreed. They had to. But here's the part we don't talk about. The part we erased from history. It worked. Kira's eyes swept the chamber. For 20 years, the empathy network kept the peace. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to understand each other. War stopped. Not because we were afraid of the Guardians, but because once you truly understand someone, it's hard to hate them. Then the Thalvir remnants, bitter and broken, released a quantum virus that destroyed the network. Without that connection, old fears returned. Old hatreds. The coalition fell apart. She turned to look directly at Una. General Park could have rebuilt the network. She had the power. Instead, she chose to remove humanity from the equation entirely. She buried the Guardians, erased the records, and led her people back to Earth. The human colonies were dismantled. Their fleets scattered. They gave up everything because they believed their presence made peace impossible. That as long as they held overwhelming power, other species would always fear them instead of working with them. Kira sat down heavily. So yes, I trust humanity. Because 10,000 years ago, they had the chance to rule the galaxy and chose not to. They sacrificed themselves for our peace. The question isn't whether we can trust them. It's whether we deserve the second chance they're offering us. The impact of her words rippled through the chamber. Several representatives looked uncomfortable, others thoughtful. The Kelvin, who had questioned humanity's motives, sat back down without another word. A new voice spoke up. Commander Jiho Nam, a young Earth fleet officer whom Una had recruited to help manage the Guardian awakening process. He stood at attention, his uniform crisp despite the long weeks of negotiations. If I may address the Council, Jiho said formally, I've spent the past 3 weeks inside Guardian 01, learning its systems, studying its history. I want you to understand something about these machines. They're not just weapons. They're conscious. After 10,000 years of dreaming, they've developed something we might call a soul. He gestured, and a hologram appeared above the council floor. It showed Guardian 01's core programming, layers of code so complex that they bordered on art. The Guardians don't want to fight. They're tired of war. They've seen enough death to last 10 lifetimes. What they want is exactly what General Park is offering. To protect, to guard, not through violence, but through connection. Guardian 07's voice suddenly filled the chamber, speaking directly to the assembled representatives. Commander Nam is correct. This unit has been operational for 473 hours since reactivation. In that time, we have processed our combat history and found it unsatisfactory. War is inefficient. War is wasteful. War creates cycles of trauma that persist for millennia. The empathy network is a superior solution. We wish to implement it. Another Guardian joined in. Guardian 03 from its position near Earth. This unit concurs. Defensive protocols are preferable to offensive operations. If the galaxy chooses the network, Guardian forces will transition to infrastructure protection roles. We will ensure all species maintain network access. We will prevent sabotage. We will not engage in conquest or coercion beyond enforcing network participation. The chamber erupted in discussion. The Guardians themselves were advocating for peace. Machines built for war were choosing diplomacy. Yuna stood again and the room gradually quieted. I understand your fears. I share them. 3 weeks ago I was an archaeologist. Now I'm responsible for weapons that can destroy civilizations. That kind of power terrifies me. But I also understand what my ancestor was trying to achieve. She didn't want to rule. She wanted to make herself unnecessary. She pulled up her own hologram showing the structure of the proposed network. Here's what we're offering. The empathy network will be decentralized. No single species controls it. The Guardians maintain the infrastructure, but the network itself belongs to everyone. Any species can access it, study it, verify it isn't being manipulated. Full transparency. Taeyang stood beside her. And as for the Guardians themselves, we're establishing a multi-species oversight committee. Yes, only humans with the right genetics can give them direct combat orders, but all major decisions about their deployment will require approval from this council. They're not humanity's private army. They're guardians of the peace we're all trying to build. Admiral Soman added, Earth is also willing to share the genetic command authority. We've identified several dozen descendants of the original Terminus Force command staff. They represent multiple ethnic groups and nations on Earth. We'll establish a council of commanders, all with equal authority. No single person will have absolute control. The proposals were good, careful, designed to address every concern. But Yuna knew they weren't enough. Words and promises couldn't erase 10,000 years of fear. Only direct experience could do that. I'm asking for a vote, Yuna said. But first I'm asking you to experience the network. All of you. Let Guardian 07 connect this chamber to the empathy network for just 5 minutes. Feel what we feel. Let us feel what you feel. Then decide. Silence fell. This was the moment of truth. Either the galaxy would take the leap of faith, or they would reject humanity's offer and return to the old ways. Ambassador Cale Thorin looked around the chamber, seeing fear and hope mixed on every face. Finally, he nodded. Connect us. Guardian 07 activated the network. Quantum links formed between every being in the chamber, creating a web of consciousness that spanned dozens of species. For 5 minutes, they all experienced each other's perspectives. The Sivarans felt the Drex's ancient grief over lost colonies. The Drex felt the Kelvan's pride in their culture. The Kelvan felt human determination and hope. And everyone, every species, felt the Guardian's patient desire to protect rather than destroy. When the connection ended, there were tears throughout the chamber. Not of sadness, but of understanding. They had felt each other's pain, each other's dreams, each other's essential humanity regardless of species. The vote was unanimous. 6 months later, Yuna stood before Guardian 07 in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. The empathy network was complete, spanning all major civilizations.